Welcome to Stumbling Toward Genius. This is the podcast for creatives where we shine a light on the challenges we all face while making things. I'm your host, Cynthia Morris. It's my joy and privilege to coach others to be the creative genius they were meant to be. I'm super excited about today's episode. I love talking to all my guests, and I have a special fondness for those who keep a regular sketchbook. It's just so much fun to see into their pages. Today we get to talk with Dutch sketchbooker Koosje Koene. Koosje's an artist, illustrator, and writer, and co-founder of Sketchbook School, which I love and have taken a ton of classes there. Ever since starting a regular drawing practice herself, Koosje's been teaching others why drawing makes you happy and how it can change the way you see the world and yourself. She does this in her classes, her weekly YouTube series, Draw Tip Tuesday, and in her upcoming book, Life is Better When You Draw It. Well, I'm super excited to be here today talking to Koosje Koene, one of my favorite creatives on the planet. Welcome to Stumbling Toward Genius.
Thank you. I am so excited about being on your podcast, Cynthia. Thank you.
Great. Well, I love to share how I know you. And I think I'd seen you online as a sketchbook artist, and then you are a co-founder of Sketchbook School. And then one time in 2014, I was in Amsterdam and I reached out to you to see if you wanted to get together, and you kindly said yes. And so we got together for coffee and we sketched each other. We had a blast sketching each other, and I just wanted to show that because it's kind of like a moment in time. Here's the drawing I made of you, not very accurate, and you said,
Cool.
and there's the drawing of me. How fun is that?
So fun.
So what I wrote was cappuccino with Koosje at Coffee Plaza. We sketch each other, which is difficult yet hilarious. It was so fun to meet such a talented and kind artist. And I hope that our listeners today get that same sense of meeting a kind and talented artist. We have so much to talk about.
Thanks.
So, I do know you as an ardent sketchbook keeper, a really talented artist. You do these wonderful drawings and mostly watercolor paintings. Tell us how you got started with keeping a sketchbook.
um, well, I always used to love drawing, and I don't even know where to start because it's a whole long story, but let's just do it. So after high school, I wanted to go to the School of Arts, like the Academy of Arts. That's what it's called here in the Netherlands. But I was a little bit too young, and then they sent me to a graphic design school. They said just go there for a year. They will teach you lots of drawing stuff, and you'll get a lot of skills, and then come back. And so I went to that school and I loved it. So I stayed and just took the whole 4 years. And after graduating there, I actually did go to the School of Arts, but I didn't go for painting or anything. But during my time at graphic design school, I found out about photography and I got really, really interested in that. So I went to the School of Arts for photography to learn that and to become a photographer. Um, but I didn't really like that whole world of the art school. So after 3 years, about 3 years, I dropped out because I actually already started to do some assignments and I made a little bit of money doing portraits and stuff like that. So I became a photographer. And just as a freelancer, I made my money, and I did that for almost 10 years, and then suddenly I sort of lost my mojo. I just didn't enjoy it that much anymore because I was really just doing my assignments for magazines and design agencies and that kind of stuff. And I was making the stuff that I was told to make instead of making the stuff that I really wanted to make. And I didn't really know what I wanted to make anymore either. So I just kind of fell out of love with the whole photography business. And so I did a lot of soul searching, and while I did photography, I did still draw, but it was a kind of occasionally. When we went on vacation, I would take a sketchbook with me and just fill like half of it. Um, and I would sketch out ideas for photography projects, that kind of stuff. Um, but I started to draw more as I was thinking, okay, I think I need to leave this whole business of doing photography. Then I had a few really random sort of jobs because I just didn't really know where to go and I needed to just make money. And during the last of those jobs, I it was like a very dull job at a bank, just answering phone calls, and I would doodle during those phone calls. And because it was a 3 day in a week job, and the other days I became so very productive. I was drawing and I was painting and I was doing so many things because I was like, well, I need to get out of here. I don't know what I will do, but I do need to create, next to that very dull life in the cubicle, basically. I don't know if that's a word in English, by the way. That's like,
Cubicle? Yeah,
yeah, like a
totally.
fence. Yeah, okay. Um,
But I just want to say, like, what's cool about the job, it kind of had an effect that you might not expect. Like the restrictions and the cubicle and the
Absolutely.
containment of a job gave you that sense of, like, okay, here's what really brings me alive outside of that space.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
restrictions.
Yes, that was the effect of it. It was like a very clear thing that I needed to do from 9 to 5. And then apart from that isolated time, there was time to do anything, because I made my money. It felt fine. It also felt like I cannot do this for a long time. And then I started to explore and I started to fill sketchbooks. I think really after one of our trips, somewhere to, I don't know, on vacation, where I would glue in like tickets and stuff like that. And I would write about what we did and I would draw the people that we met and that kind of stuff. And then at some point it clicked. I was like, why don't I do this at home in Amsterdam? There's enough that I have going on. And if I buy a coffee, I can glue in the little ticket that I get or whatever, a receipt, I mean. And so I started doing that. I just kept on going in that sketchbook and I never stopped.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting, the environment and the function, the reason we do it. What changed in your life? What difference did it make for you once you started doing it regularly at home?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, it, uh, I think it gave me a certain grounding in my day. Like, oh, I haven't done a drawing yet. Well, I'm sitting here, and I turned on the TV. Maybe I just draw some faces from the TV. That'll be nice. So it really gave me a creative habit. I am a little bit of a habitual creature, so to me that I know that a lot of people are like, how do you even do that? Day after day after day, a creative habit. How do you actually make that happen? And for me, yeah, I just really like to hang on to certain sort of rituals or certain things that I do through my days or my weeks. And so the sketchbook became one of them. And sometimes it would just be flipping it open in the morning at breakfast and drawing my bowl of cereal. And sometimes I would just go outside and think, okay, let's take an hour and let's have
Mm.
an adventure. And of course, it took me out of my comfort zone many times. I
Mm.
mean, I remember how much we giggled when we were drawing each other because it's really scary to draw someone who's actually looking at your page like that doesn't look like me.
It's so hard. Well, so I
No.
want to say something about what you've taught me, um, because drawing someone from life for me is super hard. And so what I've learned about myself in drawing people is that it looks like a person, but it doesn't look like the person.
Yes,
But
same here.
I took a class that you had around drawing people,
Hmm.
and there was one of the lessons that was uh, self portrait. Do a self portrait, and you said look in the mirror or use a photograph. And I think I did both. And there was something about drawing myself. I don't know if it was because the pressure was released about I'm not going to hurt someone's feelings by making them look bad. We don't want to ever make anyone look bad, right? In real life or in a drawing. That broke through, and I thought, oh, I can draw people. So I really owe you a lot in terms of giving me confidence as um, somebody who can draw people. That was a big breakthrough.
That's really awesome. I remember that that particular lesson got so many emotions going in the community, in the sketchbook school community. There were people who loved it, who were like, wow, this is amazing, because there's no judgment. There's like, it's just me. But there were also a lot of people who had such a hard time just looking at themselves. There was a whole psychological thing to it as well. It was really interesting
Yeah.
how, and that's what I find so interesting. I mean, I do a drawing in my sketchbook, but it's so much more than a drawing.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean? What else is it?
It's a memory, it's a thought, it's capturing the moment, the mood, especially when you do a self portrait. It's a different face every time. I mean, when you look in the mirror, you're like, yeah, it's that same face. But once you start drawing, you see the really tiny differences from day to day. You capture how you are feeling that day, in your line, even, or in the use of color. It's just so much more than just a drawing. And it doesn't even matter if it looks like you or what the result is, because it's very much about the process of just
Mm,
pausing to do this, and just slowing down and give yourself time,
mm.
basically, and a
Yeah.
creative flow that you can get out of drawing.
Yeah. And I think that's, I think excuse me, I think of us as like sketchbook sisters, and that's how I got started drawing as a way to meditate and as a way to just slow down, calm down. And I like what you say about seeing and capturing and just giving us that space to just be present. And your self portraits are so wonderful because you're not trying to make yourself look good. You're not trying to create a flattering portrait. You're not Rembrandt. You're not like all precious about it. So I'd love to see some of your sketchbooks. Do you have some, like, can you show us a few pages from one of your earlier sketchbooks?
I have a whole stack here. I'm looking for a self-portrait, since
And
we are
I also want to ask, I'll be asking about the specific kind of sketchbooks you use and how you chose that because we always want to know about the materials.
sure. Yeah. Okay, so I still have the sketchbook where with your face in it. Here's one that I did from memory, where I just drew what I was wearing that day. I mean, that is a completely different approach for a self-portrait. Um, Let me see. Oh, here's a wonky one. It says it says today was a good day, but the face doesn't look that great.
You're so good with the expressions. I think that's what you really are able to capture the expressiveness on a face, on your face.
Yeah, I have to say, for that, I do need to use a photo, because doing that in a mirror for
Okay.
more than a few minutes is a little bit painful.
Yeah. Yeah. So just as you're looking through your sketchbook,
Yeah,
what's it like for you looking through your sketchbooks? When I look through mine, I get all kinds of feelings and thoughts. And so as you're looking through this one, what comes up for you?
it's really funny, because it's like I'm literally leafing through it, and I feel the wind of the pages, and it almost feels like all these moments are just going flowing by. I mean, there's Paris in here and I can feel it, I can feel that moment in
Oh,
Paris.
wow. Nice.
It's
Yeah.
just so wonderful. And
Yeah, it's like an instant time traveler to the
it,
feelings. Do you get, as a photographer, do you get that from looking at photos?
no,
Not as
no,
much. Yeah, it's a different
no,
thing,
no,
isn't it?
yeah, it really is. There's one that looks really great.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you're so talented.
Uh,
Really beautiful, beautiful rendering, beautiful person. Do you do you get critical? Are you like, oh, that's not great, or oh, I should have blah blah?
of course, of course. I mean, that's. I think it's part of the process that you're like, oh, that wasn't as the way it was in my head. I just saw like who is this even? That was me that day. I guess. But nothing is
Totally
really.
not you. It's like Thomas Jefferson or something. But it, to me, it doesn't matter. For me, the sketchbook, I don't really feel judgy when I look at the
Yeah,
sketchbook. I feel more of a fondness because I was there in that moment capturing something.
yeah,
To me, the sketchbook is no pressure. There's no pressure whatsoever to perform or to be good um, and that's a freedom that I
yeah.
love.
Yes, I mean I feel that too, but of course, I say of course, but maybe you don't feel that at all. But somewhere along the way, I will at some point think, oh no, this is going so wrong. And then the fun part starts because then I just need to solve that problem and get creative. I mean, I don't know how many times I have drawn my husband, but I have never, ever captured him like actually looking like him. And I actually love it because that way because of that, I can just keep doing it
Yeah.
and then we can laugh about it. You'll be like, well, you got me on there really great, thanks.
Yeah,
you know
right.
and that's just so fun, and then I will actually write his comment next to it.
Oh,
It's
that's
just,
good.
I love
That's
that.
good.
Yeah,
I think, it reminds me of cooking. There are things that I've really set out to be better at. Making a really good Italian red sauce, making a really good apple crostata. And it's years. And everyone's different. Some are good. They're always edible. So I think we like having something specific to engage with like that, the challenge and for me, seeing myself grow and improve. It's
yeah.
fun.
Yes, exactly. And I love the analogy of cooking and drawing or any creative process. I mean, cooking is also a creative process, but it's like you get into a flow as well. Like you chop all the stuff and you put it in a pan and you smell it and you taste a little bit and you put a little bit more of salt in it and maybe you need some fresh herbs. It's exactly the same with drawing. I mean, there you might have sort of something in your head, but I don't think that's actually an image that's in your head. It's more like a thought that, and often the thought for people is it should be perfect, or the,
Well,
the
yeah.
perspective should be right or whatever. But yeah, no, it just happens as you do it, and you never know how it's going to work out.
So I want to talk about the self-consciousness around drawing. But before we get there, I'm curious about how you went from doing keeping a sketchbook and drawing for fun to making it part of your work. You co-founded Sketchbook School, you make videos that draw Tip Tuesday, and
Right.
now you're writing a book about drawing and sketching as a regular
Yeah.
practice. So that's all, like, what you've built around it is amazing. How did you make the shift to becoming more your job?
Well, when I was in that office job, I started to take a few, classes. Back then, it was e-courses and books, and because I wanted to just sort of polish up the skills that I did have, but I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe I can just get a little bit, I felt a little bit rusty. And so I took some of those e-courses, and I really hated like how how they were taught. It was so very much how to and step
You,
by step.
so these were
And
classes in art and drawing
yes,
classes?
sorry,
Okay.
yes, drawing classes. Yeah. Um, and so I had a thought like I could do this better. And then I had a second thought, maybe I should try. So then I started to just film my process and started to make classes. And I was like, well, why not just put them online, see if any of my, online friends might want to join me and might want to learn. And so I created an online course. And back then, online courses really weren't that normal. I mean, I had to really bootstrap everything on a blog spot website with a password word, and then people could post on Facebook, and then I could, give them
Yeah.
feedback, stuff like
What
that.
was what was the first class?
Just draw it.
Just draw it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And so yeah, I really enjoyed making those classes, and I added another course and a workshop and all that, and just online. And after a couple of years of doing that, making a little bit of money with it, that's when I went met Danny Gregory, with whom I later on founded Sketchbook School. And when we met each other, we talked about drawing, of course, and sketchbook keeping, and about how drawing often is taught, and that we both really feel that drawing is about why you do it, not how you do it or what you draw. And so, yeah, that really was the starting point of an idea. Like, so how can you actually do more with that, that idea? How can you change that? And also, I had a bit of a frustration about my own classes, that I was the only teacher. I can only teach what I know, and so I shared that with Danny. I was like, how cool would it be if you can, get a bunch of people together who all show their own different angles and their own approaches, so that you can see there isn't one way. There are no rules when it comes to making art. You decide. So that basically was the starting point of Sketchbook School. I
I
hope
love
I
Sketchbook School. I have taken a lot of classes there. I'm taking a class now. Um, and one of
awesome.
the things I love about it and why I recommend it to people is because of the style of classes, the method, the quality, the high level, and the nice variety of teachers. So,
Mhm.
good job. Really good job. And I think that's how things often happen is we're solving a problem that we have. Like you're like, oh, these classes could be better. Let's see if I can make it better.
Right,
So,
right.
um,
That's it.
and now you're working on a book. Tell
I
us
am.
about the book.
The book, yes, finally, after so many years, I'm actually creating it.
What do you mean finally? Is it something you've wanted to do?
It's something that I wanted to do for a long time, but I was always like, but when and how? So I think it took me about 7 years or something to write this book, plus the past 1.5 year of actually working on it. It's called Life is Better When You Draw It. And I think the title already says it all. Um, yeah,
Oh,
it's about, yeah,
how is life better when you draw it?
it makes you happier. Drawing makes you a happier person, because it is a form of meditation. It is a way to look around you and really see, because when you draw, you
Mm.
see what's around you. To translate that onto the paper in your way, to grow as a creative person, to grow as a person, to learn about things around you, even if it's just your set of keys on the table. Um, yeah, I if I think of drawing, it just brings me so much joy. The creative flow is something that I I can't even describe how how great it is. So yes, definitely it adds something to your life.
I love that. I feel that too. And last year I kind of stepped away from my drawing and art, and I don't really know why, and it doesn't matter. I was working on other creative projects, but I came back to it this year because I missed it. And being me and a coach, I'm like, well, what's the project and what's the bigger thing you're going to work on? And I was like, I don't know. I don't care. I don't want that. I just want to do it, just
Mhm.
to do it for the sake of doing it. And so it's almost like going back to the beginning. I'm just doing this because it feels good, because I'm happier, because I enjoy it.
Yeah,
So I agree. I don't know
that's
that,
great. Yeah.
this, like every book, your book is not for everyone. I think the people who find joy in drawing just for the sake of it will get a great invitation from your book. And
Mhm.
then I know that you've taught a lot. I've taught a lot of drawing. Drawing is meditation and capture the wow. And what I've encountered is sometimes there are people who just flock to that and know that that's who they are and want to bring out. And then there are people who are kind of suspicious and kind of like closed arms, and they say, I just can't draw. I can't draw a straight line to save my life. And I've just been so curious about that because it's really interesting. It almost seems like they feel a sort of moral, like there's something wrong with them, versus that just that they don't have that skill or just don't want that skill. Have you seen
Mhm.
that with people who just say I can't draw a straight line? What have you noticed about that?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. And they're like, yeah, so I don't do it. And
So are
I'm
these
like,
people who want to draw or people who just don't? It's just not their thing.
both. I think it's both. Sometimes it's really like when I'm drawing somewhere on location. Often people, people find that really interesting. An
I know,
artist,
I love that.
wild, it's like
Yeah.
they come up to you and they're like, "Wow, this is really great what you're doing," even though your drawing is like just three lines, but they're just like, "Wow, someone is actually doing this." So I
It's like a
think
magic trick, isn't it? There's
it's
something
true.
really
Yeah,
cool. It's a
yeah.
frenzy-maker.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So often it's people who never draw and they're like, wow, that's so great you're doing this. Well, I can't even draw a straight line. Um, but more often it's people who say, oh, I love that you're doing this. I used to love drawing. I never do it. And then the
Oh.
conversation, I'm like, okay, so why? And yeah, I love it if I sometimes can convert people. They walk away and they're like, I'm going to get out a sketchbook too. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, you should whip
So
out your card and say, I can help.
exactly. Yeah, I sometimes I do that. But yeah, it's yes, it's interesting. And then the whole expression of like, I can't even draw a straight line. I'm like, well, have you tried lately?
Right,
And what about the wonky line that got out? Isn't that pretty?
right. And just there's this notion that you should have this ability. You should just have it versus something that takes a lot of practice. I found my first sketchbook from 2003, and
Mm,
the I can just see such a difference. There's all these very sketchy tentative lines,
right.
really small. And so now, when I look at what I do now, from 2003 to 2022, that's almost 20 years. That's a big difference. It's a lot of practice,
Yeah.
and it's practice. It's to me a love practice. It's not like, well, you better get in there and practice your drawing. It's practice because I just can't stop, keep wanting to do it. I have all these small sketchbooks, and let's just talk about notebooks for a minute because I took this one on a trip to Amsterdam, Berlin, and Paris, and it's just enormous. I mean, if
Yeah.
you like open this up, I was so self-conscious about this, I almost gave up on it. And
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
and now it's one of my favorite notebooks. This huge, like drawing, just a line drawing of a houseboat in Amsterdam,
Um,
and the different I just love this sketchbook. So challenging ourselves to
Oh yeah.
be a little uncomfortable. And you mentioned that
Yeah.
earlier, like, yeah, it's not always comfortable. And being
Yeah.
seen drawing, a lot of self-consciousness around that.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love drawing in public because it helps me to make friends and it's easier to connect to people. I was just in
Mm.
Mexico and I started drawing the crew on the snorkel boat that we went on, and they were so excited about it and they lined up to pose for me while I drew them, and they just had such a blast with it.
That's fantastic. Oh, I love that.
Like if you have any social anxiety as I do, or just like awkwardness, like how do I connect with people, it's instant connector. And
Absolutely. Yes, I totally agree. And I recognize that too. I can relate because I'm not someone who just steps up to people and start talking. But I have the same experience. I think it was in Cambodia on a market where I started to draw a food stall and a woman in there and next to it, well, I sat there for an hour or something, and like the whole market was sort of gathering and they were all like, come look, it was, I
oh,
made so many friends and we couldn't even speak each other's language, but you don't need it because drawing is a language.
drawing is a universal language.
Yes.
Oh,
And speaking of languages, I really like to also compare, or not compare, well, use the analogy of drawing with, or learning to draw, because, like you said, people often are like, well, I don't even know how to do that. No, of course, you need to practice. And it's like what you see on Instagram is curated, what you see on YouTube is carefully edited, and there is no, there is no shortcut. You just need to put the work in, but the work is fun too.
that's
and
yeah,
and what I like to think about is like, it is like learning to speak a language,
that's a great way to put it.
because you will know some words and you will gather more words and you will try to make sentences, and probably, especially as adults, you won't ever be really fluent at it,
Mm,
but people will understand you, and your accent will probably be seen as charming.
yeah,
And I think it is exactly the same with drawing. You're never done learning. I mean, even in your own language, you're never done learning. And it's the same with drawing. You can grow and grow, and you can make it, you can go anyway with it. And that's what really excites me about it too. Like, so this is just a never ending joy. You
oh,
can just give yourself, and it's in a book. It can be in like a tiny book like this,
oh, that's adorable. That
or
so
or in this.
yeah, that's huge. Yeah, right. That's about as big as this one, or maybe bigger. Yeah. So the never-ending joy and your enthusiasm is really infectious. It's you just like it's when someone's in love with what they do and want to share that, you can't help but want to go along. So I'm imagining this is in your book, Life is
Yeah,
Better When You Draw It.
yeah.
Um, Tell us more about what was important for you about writing this book and maybe some of the challenges that you've encountered while doing it.
Well, I've been making Draw Tip Tuesday videos for 10 years, almost 10 years. I think,
Wow.
yeah, 10 years. I think I started in 2012.
And that's a YouTube
And
channel on your
yeah,
YouTube?
that's my YouTube channel. Koosje Koene is the YouTube channel, but well, whatever. If you just Google Draw
We'll
Tip Tuesday, you'll probably find it.
we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, that's great. Um, and I started that actually as a marketing tool for my first online course, but I kept doing it. So every Tuesday, every week, I post a video that is like 5 to maximum 10 minutes. And it's a bit of encouragement to make you draw that day or that week. I don't remember what the question was. Oh, yes, the book. Sorry.
What made you want to write a book and
Yeah.
some of the
So,
challenges?
so sharing my own creative path has been something that I really enjoy. I did that at Sketchbook School, and I did that blogging for years. And people told me like, oh, it would be so awesome to have a book by you. but I was so busy with Sketchbook School, I just couldn't. There was no time to do that. And I didn't have the headspace. I didn't know where to start. And so when I left Sketchbook School, I took a sabbatical. And after a few months, basically, of catching my breath, I was like, that book. And actually, it was my friend Suzanne Cologne who was reminding me, like, how about your book? Don't you want to write that book? I was like, So she planted that seed again, and I just started writing like I write blogs, like
Mm.
started with an idea and I write a little bit. And I told myself, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to write because I love doing it, because I like creating and I feel like something has to get out. But if it feels too much like work, I won't do it. If the book never, uh, becomes a book, it's fine. Then I've just tried and I know it's not for me because I am not a writer. I'm a creator, I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm not a writer per se. So I didn't know how to do it, but I just that's how I did it. I would just go for a walk and I would just think about, like, today I'll write, I would, again, I made it a habit. Like every day I can write for an hour or something. That's nice to sit down and write. If I don't feel like it, I won't. And then in the morning, I would go for my daily walk. It was also during lockdowns and everything, so there wasn't anything else that would distract me. I would go for my walk. I would think, I have no idea what to write today. And then after 10 minutes of walking, I would just get an idea. That's just what happens, if you,
Daily walks. Yep.
yes, walking is like a meditation and something just pops in your mind, or first everything pops out of your mind. And so I would use like Evernote to just quickly write it down or dictate, like, this is the idea. And then I would come back home, make myself a coffee, sit down and draw like a page or two, like a long blog post. So that's how it started. And I kept going. But writing is one thing, but editing is something completely different, because then at some point I just had like 25-ish chapters that didn't really make that much sense together. So that's when the harder work started. Like, okay, how do I actually make sense of this all? And I am really, really grateful for having fantastic friends around me who offer to help, like Suzanne, who I just mentioned. She has edited like she was paid for it, but she wasn't. She was like, "No, I'm doing this for you."
Wow.
Yeah, she has been a fantastic editor, and she's made the book so much better than it was in the first place. And I have a friend, Sabine Wisman, who is a creative coach, and she really helped me to break things down at at the very beginning of the book, because I was like, I don't know how this works. What do I do? How do I even create a book? I mean, I can write, but then what?
Yeah, it's
So
like shaping it. It's bringing
yes,
these different pieces into a cohesive body of work. That
exactly.
is
Like
the
all the
tricky part.
things that I knew that I needed to still do research on, I needed to find out how to even approach like publishers, all those things. She helped me break it down. I'm like, okay, so in 2 weeks' time, I'll have done this, this, and that. And that way the project just grew, and yeah, it rolled. And in the end, I decided to not go through not to find a publisher, but do it myself, to self-publish.
What made you decide that? Because that's a big decision everyone has to make who's writing a book.
Yes, yes. Well, I got a couple of rejections, of course. That's normal. I mean, with the first rejection, Suzanne actually congratulated me. She was like, "Now you are a real author." Yeah, well, thanks.
I like to think of it that if you're not getting rejected, you're not trying. So
Yeah, yeah. I think,
trying is
yeah.
valid in its own self.
Yes. Um, but I also talked with a few people who had been self-publishing, and they made me see the pros and cons of
Yeah.
self-publishing or being a published author. And long story short, I just got so much more excited about the idea of doing it myself because of the many choices I could make myself
Yeah.
and the freedom that I would have with it. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm in that process. Yeah.
That's what I like about self-publishing is you know, it's pro and con. You have total control. Um, you get to make all the decisions. So
Yeah.
mostly that's good. And also because you have your own business already. You've put you know a body of work out there consistently for 10 years. You
Mhm.
know how to manage projects. So
Right.
while you might not know, you know, you're learning how to do that with a book, you know how to get things done and get them into the world. So
Yep.
that project management skill to me is a big one for when we're making that decision around self-publishing.
Yeah.
Either we know how to do that or we know how to get help with that.
Yeah.
When is the book coming out? I know you're still writing it. Where are you at with it now? Well, we're filming, recording this in February 2022. So
Yeah. Um, really, to be honest, I don't know.
I know someone asked me that today about my book. I'm like, I don't know, next year sometime.
No, it will be this year, but
Okay, good.
I'm not sure how fast the last part of this whole project will go because that's how it's been going all the time. Like, okay, so now I'm here. I didn't know I was going to deal with this, you know. So there might be some research that will slow me down, or I don't know what's coming. And I think all along this project that has been fantastic that I haven't known what was coming because maybe I wouldn't have started it in the
Well, like
first
having
place.
children, right? Would you have children if you knew?
I
It's
don't
like
have
thinking of,
kids, but yes, I can
I don't
imagine.
either.
Yeah.
So that um
Yeah.
so I guess I'm curious about my book that I'm working on is an illustrated book
Mhm.
with color. And so I'm curious about how you're doing that. I'm assuming yours will have drawings in it. And I don't know if
Yes.
this is just for me, if we were just hanging out having coffee and I would ask about this, if this is interesting for other people, but the factor of publishing, self-publishing a book that's got images in it is a different thing than just writing.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing
Yes.
with that?
Well, it took me a lot of research to find out how to publish this because if it's just text, digital printing is not a problem and
Yeah.
it's easy to distribute and all that. So I've been for a long time I've been trying to find a company that would do offset printing so the drawings really come out well. It's like most of the book is drawings, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's important.
Um, so it's really important. But the thing is the distribution of it, because this company that I found who would do the printing and the distributing, they only distribute to the Netherlands and Belgium.
Oh, well, that's a small
Well,
part of the world. It's a
that's
wonderful
not
part of the
so
world, but
great.
it's
Yes. So and my audience is really all over the world.
yeah.
So at some point I was like, okay, I need to let go of this. This was actually the first compromise I had to do. I need to let go of the idea of offset printing. I need to go for digital printing. And once I decided that, I felt such a huge relief because in no time I found a really nice company in the UK who do the printing, the distribution to all the different platforms like Amazon and whatever there is. And it also took out so much of the costs because if you
Yeah.
have to, you know, print like a I don't know a whole
Mm.
pallet of those things. Where do you put it? Do you put it in your basement? Are you going to distribute it? Well, all that, all that.
Mm.
So yeah, that made me feel really relieved about it. And also, I read about the digital printing world and how much it has changed
Yeah.
since years. It's really, really great, the quality. So I'm sure there would be a big difference between offset and digital printing, but will the reader really see that difference? I don't know. So yeah, I
Yeah.
just want that book to get out in the world and be available for anyone
Yeah.
instead of it being one precious thing. And that's one of the things also about sketchbooks. I don't want my sketchbooks to be precious, so I don't want this book to be a precious thing either. It just has to be something awesome to inspire others.
Yeah. So I noticed a couple of themes in your process of writing the book. First, it was just to lower the expectations about it and just you borrowed from a competency that you already had. You know how to write blog posts, so let's just
Mhm.
do it as if it's that, and
Mhm.
then get some things out, and then like how does this all go together? Having
Mhm.
help with that, I think that's really important because you're kind of blind to it. It's all right, kind
Yeah.
of up in your face, and having that someone who has distance, and then having ideas about the way it should come out or how it should be, and then having to change that expectation. I think this is really important for all of us to see your process because that's what I think we have to constantly be readjusting our expectations. And I'm always coaching people to lower their expectations, which would
Right.
seem counterintuitive, like go bigger, do more, be better. Like, no, like just be really bad. Don't even expect much at the beginning. And then there's much more room and that freedom for that creative flow you
Right.
talked about.
Right. Right. Yeah, I love that.
And the process that you went through, learning to write a book. Writing a book is a whole other thing. You've done a lot of things, you've produced a lot of things. Writing a book is its own animal, it's its own thing. And you kind of have to go through all those stages yourself. The learning, just the mechanism of it in this time, which is changing all the time. It's really humbling to do that, but you're up for it.
I am totally up for it because I love learning new things.
See,
And
yep,
and
yep.
this is really the whole process has been like, yeah, again, it's kind of out of my comfort zone, but I also know like, well, if I can build a business in the US, I guess I can, produce a book.
Right. So that's borrowing from the things you've done, the confidence from things you've done in the past.
Yeah, I think that really helps. Yeah, and as I say, I love learning new things. So this is just a whole new learning
Yeah.
process, and I'll have that in my pocket. I don't know if anytime soon I will write another book, but yeah, this book also gave me so many ideas for other projects. I
Yeah.
want to create a whole course around it. There's
Yeah.
so many nuggets in there that I can go on and on about. So yeah, it's just one of the many things of the things I want to make. Yeah.
Yeah. That learning, that's one of the things that I have found helpful for me and for other people that I'm working with is what values are behind you doing this book. Even if you don't know how to write a book, you have the value of learning and the values of creativity. And also, you have a value somewhere probably around teaching and sharing. So those
Mhm.
are the things that light you up. That's the inner fire that get you through the long, difficult challenge of researching and learning and building something new.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, and I think I love it that we can talk about this too. So that the process or the sharing of these kinds of experiences help others too, like to see that it is not like a one-way street. It's just like you need to just
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain, but it is with every creative process, there's a learning curve, and there's no shortcut. You just need to find your way to do it and to get from A to B, even if you don't really know where B might be.
Yeah, and it is humbling and difficult. It's not really easy to be a beginner. I'm learning, the class I'm taking is about learning Procreate and
Mm,
on the
mm,
iPad, doing art on the iPad, and it's just not, it's difficult and it's humbling and it's not a lot of fun, easy wins along the way. So just really, like, I have to keep reminding myself why I'm doing this. Um,
right.
so um, I was going to say something before that. Well, you talk about, like, it's like this zigzag path, that's sort of a maze, and it is also an emotional roller coaster.
Right.
Um, but when I started drawing more, really wanting to get more into it in 2013, I had just published my novel, and I was like, okay, that was 13 years of a lot of work and learning and humility, 17 drafts of writing that book.
Wow.
What, I want to do art now because it's a historical novel, and I said I'm tired of living in the sepia toned past. I want to be in the present and drawing things like you, like in the moment. And then
Mhm.
I thought, well, that's just, there's a part of me that's like, that's a lot of learning. That's a lot of, now you're at the beginning again on this huge learning curve. And it really kind of made me droopy for a little bit. And then I thought, but you love it. Like this, you get to do what you love, which is getting really into drawing and painting and
Right.
improving my skills. So I think, for anyone listening, if you're daunted by the thought of a long, humbling learning curve, remember the, like, go back to, well, what do I love about this? What's exciting about it?
Right. And also, because I think a lot of people are afraid that they make bad drawings, maybe, especially if in the beginning you're just really unclear about how to do things. But I think that if you are not making ugly stuff, then you are doing it wrong, you
You got to
know?
do a lot, right? You make a lot of drawings, and
Yes. I mean, I have the first draft of the book. I mean, I have just scratched so many things.
yeah,
Like, yeah, it seemed like a good idea, but now ugh. So yeah, and also the making mistakes and making maybe bad drawings. It's all part of the process.
so there's something in, as you talk about that, there's
Mhm.
a quality that you have that I want to really underline and identify, where it's just like, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
There's nothing at stake here for you in your sketchbook to make it good.
Right.
What would you, how would you describe that? Just kind of like, whatever, it's bad, it doesn't matter, I'll just do it again. Is it knowing that you, with practice or time, will do it better, or is just like not attached to?
Yeah, it's you can just flip the page and do another drawing. Who cares? But you don't need to show it to anyone if you're really unhappy with it. Um, you can do another one, or you can wait a day and do another one. It's just pen on paper. There's nobody's going to die. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
it's something that you do for fun, and maybe if you then are disappointed, oh well. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm disappointed about a whole day because it wasn't that great or the
Yeah.
sun wasn't shining. There will be another day tomorrow.
Yeah.
It'll be okay. So that's basically my feeling around it. But also, very very often, when I close my sketchbook, like, well, that was a little bit mediocre. I A few days later, or even a few weeks or a few months later, I open the sketchbook at that page. I'm like, that's actually
Ah,
very good.
yeah.
So it's also such a moment in time and such a, an emotion that once you don't have that emotion anymore, you look with completely different eyes at what you made. And that's the great thing about sketchbooks too. It's like, because you do it page after page, it builds up to a whole story
Mm.
about you, about your life, about whatever you draw is about you, and nobody else is doing it the way you do it, and that's really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. the lower, just like there's no stakes. It's not like you're a bad person if you pull off a bad drawing, or a good person if you, it's just like, it's just a play zone, a practice zone, just
Exactly.
because you're interested. Um, so there's so much more we can talk about, but I know we need to go soon. Are there any sketchbook pages you want to show a few more? Because they're so delightful. Anything
Yeah.
else you want to be sure to tell us?
Yeah. So I have one that I really love showing to people, and
What do you love about it?
okay, it's called Home Sweet Home.
Oh, you title them. Great.
Well, actually, I titled this one because it was a separate project that I started. Actually, a bit the same now that I think about it, as I started a book. Like, okay, I'll do this. I'll do it bit by bit, piece by piece. If I don't enjoy it, I stop. It's fine. It was at a moment where I had a bit of a creative. I was in a creative rut. I just, I didn't really know what tools to use. I was like, I don't know. I came out of a month of October that I didn't really love that much, and I just didn't feel it. And then so I didn't draw for a while. Like, okay, maybe I shouldn't draw for a while, and then it might start itching again. And I did somewhere very far back. I felt an itch, and I decided, oh, I have this accordion
Oh,
sketchbook,
yeah.
and I had it for so long, and I was so precious about it. Like, I need something very special for this. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to just crack that open and do something not special in it. And I will just draw the stuff in my house. So I started with drawing my keys on the table in the hallway, and from there on, I started to actually draw the hallway and zoomed in on things in the hallway. And every day or every second day or something, I would move into a different room in our apartment to just draw it, to portray our home.
Oh,
And I kept going. And as I kept going, I started to uh, feel it again, feel very excited about it. And I used the same tools all through it, like a fat ink pen and watercolors. And well, this whole sketchbook is also on my YouTube channel. It's called Drawing the Mundane. So if you want to really see it, then you can watch it there.
oh, that's so cool. It's gorgeous.
Uh,
I love those accordion notebooks. They really are different.
yes,
You really
yes,
see the whole thing.
yeah, they really are. And I love having those kind of projects next to the daily drawings that I do in my sketchbooks. I did a shoe off with my friend Jane LaFazio because
What?
she noticed how many shoes I had, and we both were drawing our shoe collection, and it's this is crazy because it just goes on and on and on. I have so many shoes. It's
I am
crazy.
so in love with that. I am so in love with that.
It
I mean,
was so
so
fun to do. It was so fun.
how did that change your relationship to shoes? Because I don't know if I heard a little tinge of shame about having so many shoes, or maybe not, just like, look at
I
those.
threw these out because I was like, I haven't even worn them for 3 years, and I kept them as a souvenir. Um, there's a few in here that I actually got rid of because I was like, why do I even have these? But now I have them in my sketchbook, which is maybe even better. So, yeah.
Oh, I'm looking for today in my writing group. Our ritual blessing was dance a little after writing just for fun. And it's a drawing of some red shoes that I had that I never wore. And then I gave them away. I was like, I don't need them. I don't have to keep them around because I have this little drawing of them. So that's great. That's a
Exactly. Yeah.
that's a more in the vein of giving attention to and space to what you love. You love the shoes, and now you have this wonderful collection. Have you, so when I see the accordion notebook, and I've thought about this, I think I've done like 28 of those. I finally just numbered them recently and put them in order. About having an exhibit of your sketchbooks, because that right there, I could just see that spread out. Have you ever done that or thought about that, or is that of any interest to you?
Well, this is funny because last year I started to paint abstract paintings just because I wanted to explore if I like that or not. And I'm part of this, or I rent a studio space, and once a year, the people who rent there have like a group exhibition, and I didn't feel ready at all to exhibit my paintings because I was just like splashing paint around, but well, I had to. So I curated my own art, and it was really interesting. I just put them all on the wall and I priced them and everything. And then I also put this accordion sketchbook in a very far away corner, just, in case people, I would talk with people who were visiting to our exhibition. But people just gravitated towards the sketchbook. They were looking at the paintings like, interesting colors. And then they would just gravitate to the sketchbook, spend all their time there. And then they would say, "Is this yours?"
What do you think that's about? What makes it so magnetic?
It is so recognizable. I write very simple things next to them. There's stuff everywhere. There's I found this desk lamp in a secondhand shop in Belgium. So there's just really tiny notes in there that are super interesting to read about because everybody has these things in their home. And also I think I mean I have been drawing for so many years. That's what I do.
You're super good at it. Yeah, you're very skilled. And not that I don't
Yeah,
know
I
about your
guess. Yeah.
paintings, but it's funny that what you just said though, the object, because you do draw a lot of objects and there's a fondness for that. And it's almost like the sketchbook, your sketchbook is an artifact in itself. It's an artifact of artifacts, which, no, right? Which is really different
Meta.
than totally meta, which is really different than art.
Yeah.
And that people relate to the objects, they relate to, there's such a, to me, there's such a unself consciousness, an unpretentiousness, a lack of artifice in a sketchbook. And it's almost like a map of your mind, your soul, your passions, which is really different than a piece of art.
Yeah.
The lack of self consciousness, like, this is for me. I'm not creating this as a precious object to be displayed. This is an intimate moment, it's a moment of connection where you're putting down your love on the page. And again, not to say that art and art pieces, sculpture, painting, whatever, isn't love. But there's just like there's like a bringing it down to the level that people can connect with more easily.
Yeah. That's it. Well put. Yeah.
So imagine an exhibition of your sketchbooks.
Yeah. I think that would be fun.
I think that would be fun.
Yeah,
I
I do think that would be fun. I mean, I have been going through all my sketchbooks to curate drawings that I want to include in my book.
yeah.
And that has been such a great part of the process. I'm like, yeah, this is actually really, really a fun thing. And maybe at some point I will exhibit. Yeah.
What did you notice or discover as you looked through them?
Growth, many, many, many travels. um, I don't know if I discovered so much. I just really see the growth in my art, like how just like you said, you saw that sketchbook from 2003, how very tight it still was, and very careful and a little bit insecure, and how I can also see the influences of the artists that I
Uh-huh.
met and that I learn from and that I admire. You can really see a difference, like, oh, I'm going to try that pen, and then finding out that it really is my thing or it really isn't.
Yeah.
So all that evolving through the pages, I love it. And then I'm also really curious, like, okay, so I am where I am right now, but well, how will it be in 5 years or even 2 years from now? It's just so,
Oh,
yeah. Again, I just get really excited.
I love it. I love it. And that's why we love you. Your art is beautiful and your sketchbooks are beautiful. And it's your enthusiasm that makes us want to do more. I want to do more right now with my sketchbook. I'm sure people listening and watching like, where's my sketchbook? So um, I'll put everything in the show notes about Draw Tip Tuesday, the specific videos you mentioned, the people you mentioned,
Yeah.
a link to your website where people can sign up to be part of your
Yes.
book process and get
Yes.
news about that. And so we'll put all that last thing because I know people want to know, do you have a favorite notebook that you like to use or sketchbook? Favorite brand or size?
Yes. I love changing up sizes and formats because that is, again, just nudging yourself out of your comfort zone, like suddenly doing something like this, very
Oh yeah, I
long.
have one of those. I love that one. That's the
So cool.
handbook, right?
Yes, it is. It's like you're completely confused the first few pages. Like, how do I even do this?
It's such a
So
cool shape.
yeah, so I switch things around and sometimes use toned paper sketchbook, and then
Mm.
it takes me a very long time to fill it because I don't know how. But usually, if you would ask me, there's just one brand, one kind of sketchbook that you can buy from now on forever. It would be the Hanemühle Nostalgie sketchbook. I love it because it has smooth paper. It comes in many different sizes, and yeah, that currently is my favorite.
That's one of my favorites too. The covers. It's like this gray slate. It's so
Yes,
sexy.
the
Hanamula.
cloth
Yep.
feel. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, me too.
Yep. They also do an accordion one as well. And there's a square. And
And they actually launched a whole new series of products like toned paper. They have watercolor toned paper. They have 100% cotton paper. I think
and
they have
they have one
a
called the
lot of stuff.
cappuccino,
Yes,
that light brown. Yeah.
and the gray one. Yeah. So
Uh,
yeah, I really like that brand.
I love Hanamula, and I only discovered them in Paris. I was in a Paris art supply store and found their notebook and fell in love
Hmm.
with the sexy cover because the
Oh,
texture is important to me. So, okay, well, that was a surprise. I didn't expect you to say that, so I'm glad we'll give a plug for Hanamula in the notes. This has been so much fun. I cannot wait to see your book. Really look forward to it, and I look forward to spreading the word when it comes out. Thanks so much for coming on Stumbling Toward Genius.
thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Good, thanks. How fun was that? Oh, so much fun. And I hope this episode inspired you to delight and lean into your own creative process, whether you use a sketchbook or not. I know I'm super inspired to do more in my sketchbook. I fell off a little bit last year, but I'm back, and talking to Koosje really got me going again. You can find links to Koosje's website and YouTube channel, plus everything we mentioned on this episode's webpage at originalimpulse.com. Thanks for listening. Now go make something.